What is the biggest lesson a horse has taught you, and how has it shaped the way you train? Warwick, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I can start with that one, yeah. Yeah, the biggest lesson a horse has taught me is how to listen. The power of listening versus telling. And what was the rest of the question? Sorry.
And how has it shaped the way you train?
It's I can't go into the whole story here, but I had a horse about 8 years ago who, what I was trying to achieve with him, I couldn't achieve the way I was doing it. And at the time, I'm achieving changes with every horse I come in contact with all around the world, and I'm helping people do it, and I know what the hell I'm talking about. But when I couldn't change, like Ben said, you don't keep doing the same thing over and over. I actually stepped back and what is really going on here, and how else can I look at things? And it really led me down the path of more in relationship first rather than training behaviours. And yes, it was the power of listening, and for me it actually helped me listen with people too. I used to be quite good at talking at people, and I think all the skills I might possess with people now, actually I learnt them from horses in the first place, and this one was certainly the case.
I'm going to go with, I don't have one particular horse, but more a sequence of events involving different horses. I had an incredibly talented horse called Corincio, who, so he's 17 now. I started riding him when he was 3. And he was super talented. He won Young Horse Championships. He was 7th in the World Young Horse Championships for 5-year-olds. He won numerous nationals up to small tall level, so Prix St George into 1. And we struggled with the transition to Grand Prix. And he was quite a big horse. He was super scopy and loose. He found going big and forward and sideways very, very easy. But he found the compression a little bit more difficult. So the piaffe and passage work wasn't so natural for him. And because of his success throughout his career, we were selected for the World Class programme, which is like the lottery-funded programme, which is understandably quite results orientated, because they have to justify why they are giving riders money. So, they have to be able to see, look at these riders' marks, and, the general trend has to be an upward trend. And it is quite a lot of pressure, especially when I felt like I was sat on a horse that had the potential to be a top-class horse. But he really struggled with the Grand Prix work, and sometimes we would go, he had some fantastic results. He went to the Nations Cup at Hickstead and was second, I think, actually, but with good competition in the special with a super mark. And then, we'd go out 2 weeks later and go from 74% the week before to 64% the week after, because we basically didn't piaffe. And I really struggled with this mentally. So, with the pressure that I put on myself because of the world class thing, with the pressure that I put on myself because I felt like the horse was really good and I was not doing a good enough job, and I didn't have the answers to fix it. And I had a lot of help from brilliant people and great support. But in the end, I was like, okay, this just isn't working. And the last competition that I did on him was actually the Nationals. And we'd done 2 quite good piaffes, and I turned onto the final centre line in 74%, which would have won the national championships. And then we came into Passage, and then he was like, we're not doing piaffe here. So we got a 1 for our piaffe, and I think maybe even a 0 for our piaffe and a 1 for our transitions, and went from 74 to 68 very quickly, and the top of the leaderboard to quite far down the leaderboard. But you know what? By that point, I was like, it's okay. I really feel like I've done what I could with this horse. So the plan was actually to sort of just drop him down, find a young rider or something to lease him and, let him do what he found really easy. Unfortunately, he actually injured himself, as they do. But what then came after that was I had another Grand Prix horse that I was riding, and I had really lost my confidence with that Piaffe work. And I was not doing a good enough job with the next horse because I was a little bit like, oh, this Piaffe might go wrong, this Piaffe might go wrong. And funnily enough, quite often, the Piaffe went wrong. So, this was then becoming like my problem. And I remember really clearly taking a wagon full of horses to have lessons with Carl from, I think maybe I had my 7-year-old there and then an older one and the Grand Prix mare. And he was like, you're really good at teaching horses to Piaffe. And I was like, I'm not, can't do it. And I did really I lost my way with it a little bit. And then I actually sold the second Grand Prix horse. And, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a disaster, but she was super talented and I didn't feel she was super talented for that work. And I didn't feel I was getting the best out of her. And then it took Bomb, who I produced from, just batch 3-year-old all the way through. And he made me realise that I could do it because he was just a teeny bit more helpful than some of the others. And bit by bit, we built each other's confidence back up. And now I realise that I am actually quite good at teaching a horse to Piaffe, but I needed to be not so good, lose my confidence, have the horse that built me back up to realise that I could do it. So, and now I have, again, it's a 7-year-old mare, and she has a super talent for it, but she's quite feisty. She's a redhead. And she can be a little bit feisty. But because of the confidence that Bomb has given me, I am now more confident with that horse. And I know if I'd had her after Corinthio, it would have been a problem. But now, having her after Bomb, I'm like, I can do this, it's cool. I have a few more tools in my toolkit, I have a few more things to help me out, and that horse is getting more and more confident. So then you get a virtuous circle instead of a vicious circle. And I think, that's been such an important lesson for me to learn and a process for me to go through. And I think that, that's definitely helped me to help other people through a similar kind of thing. And, I'm incredibly lucky that I have had the horses that have helped me go on that journey. And that, I think we're all lucky because we're riding and working with a lot of horses. When you're working with just one horse at a time and you only have that horse, when things go a little bit wrong, it's like whoosh. Whereas I can have one horse that's going through a little bit of a static phase or it's a little bit tricky, but then I have another one that's going brilliant. And, that can help you actually work through things with the more difficult one. Whereas I think when you've only got one, that journey can actually be a lot tougher.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have to wind you up. I really loved that halfway through. And then I was just with Carl Hester, and he said I was really good at teaching Piaffe. Just, because going to the Olympics isn't enough.
And like 10 minutes before that, Ben was over there saying something, and Becky turned to me and she goes, he's talking about being on Britain's Got Talented again.
Just take your top off and be shut up with it, okay?
Look, we'll pull the Love Island story out if we get stuck, all right?
Excellent.
So, no, for me, like, what have I learnt the most from horses? So, like I said, right at the beginning, we talked about that idea that I was too, come on! So that's such a big thing for me. So one of the first thing is, just because you've decided, so you've come here tonight, maybe you've always done natural horsemanship, you've never dipped your toe into competitive dressage, and Becky's inspired you to. Maybe you've done pure dressage or something else, you've never done horsemanship, and me and Warwick have inspired you to jump into doing what we're doing.
I'm going to give it a bash. Yeah. One horse on each leg.
Absolutely.
I mean, one horse on each leg, one leg on each horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Double 1 times. It would be
Interesting.
sick.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, we'll play. Your poor horse has no idea it's had a career change overnight. So be gentle during the blooming transition. If you've got a job at a bakery and you arrive the next day and it's a bank, you'd be like, what on earth, what kind of matrix world am I living in? So ease your horse into a new thing more gradually. How do I know this? Because I'm the moron. I've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. So I've made those stupid things where I've taken a pony that I've always show jumped and then gone, today we'll play loose, and the pony's gone, I don't understand. I'm going to eat grass or do the wall of death because you're confusing me. So it's, ease into a new style of work with your horse, not only for their mental health, but also for their physical, their physical well-being and all of that. The other thing that I would say is, don't get destination addiction. Okay, so what's destination addiction? If you're riding your horse on a hack, out on a trail ride, and then you turn for home, and it starts to pick up that walk. Oh yes, Bob the Cob, who has scraped his shoes off, he's worn them down. They're only going to do 4 weeks now because of how much he's dragged his feet round this road. But when he turns to home, he's bloody Seabiscuit. That is destination addiction. We laugh, but it's not actually fun, is it? Because by that point in the hack, we need a wee. We're now getting ruggled around, and you're like, oh, I don't want this. I don't want to have to half-halt all the way home. Why is the last part of my hack always the worst part of the blooming ride? So we don't enjoy destination addiction when it's thrust onto us. Equally, we shouldn't do that to our horses. If you don't actually enjoy the process of training your horse, I'm not sure it's for you. Don't own one. Save your money, save the money on livery, and go for schoolmaster lessons on a weekend where you can jump on one, push buttons, get nice videos for Instagram and carry on. Because if you don't actually like that process of doing it, what are you here for? Like, people would refer to me as a performer. I don't know the numbers, and I might try and tally this up next year, but the amount of hours I spend actually in front of an audience with horses performing is about 0.5% of the time I spend in the arena training the blooming things.
Come on, you spend your whole life performing.
I wish I did. I'd have a posh wagon like yours if I did that. So I've got a couple of little sayings that can help you with this when you're training your horses. Give it an hour, and it will take 10 minutes. Give it 10 minutes, and it'll take an hour. The second one, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Give your horse the chance to learn. And this doesn't just mean on the progress to each stepping stone, each progression. I mean as you add your cues. If you're going to start horsemanship after tonight, and your horse has never done any groundwork, and we're going to start with something really simple like a hind quarter yield, meaning that I'm going to point at my horse's bum, and I want my horse to step its bum around away from me. What we don't want to do is go straight to raising the stick or the whip or the rope or whatever we're going to use and going, move. Oh, it didn't work. Do you know? Oh, point. No, nothing happened. Knock on the door. Wait. Watch. Your horse, what is movement? Is movement limited to the legs and hooves? When I first start asking a horse to move on the floor doing groundwork, I'm looking to be able to lift the whip and have the ear that's on the same side as the whip connect with the whip. Then once we get to when I lift that whip, the ear flicks to the whip, I want to be able to move the whip and see if the ear stays with it. Then I want to try and rest that tail, that tiny tail of the whip on the belly of the horse and get that, there's probably a real name, but I call it a fly wobble. Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, and stopping and backing off every time we get those reactions, because you're showing that horse every time you move, I back off. Every time you move or give a reaction, I'll adapt my training. And if we can start training slow like that, then as we move up through the levels to more complex maneuvers, your horse knows that you will adapt and change to how you work with them as you train. And so they have more confidence to offer you more energy, to put themselves in more compromising positions that are going to be more difficult for them. Do you know, when I say what's a compromising position, do you know, most of us would struggle to sit in a squat. So if you're going to ask a horse to start doing a piaffe, that's a lot, do you know? And it's gaining that trust from the horse that it knows that you're going to adapt your signals as the horse progresses. That's going to allow it to have the confidence to offer you those movements.
So one thing that I want to come back to there is I was lucky enough to do a podcast with Ben a couple of weeks ago, and one thing that you said that really... Oh, actually, I don't know that if it was on the one that I spoke to, but maybe one of the ones that I was listening to. One of the things that you said was that with Liberty, one of the first things that you train is the mental state of you as a person, and that you know it's so important, the mental state that you are in when you're trying to ask something. And that, you know, one of your things is if you look at your whip hand and your knuckles are white because you're like, "Urgh," then you have to step away and leave it and go. And I think that I found that really fascinating, because I think it's something that I think we don't talk about early enough quite often in our training, which is your mental state and its impact on the horse. And I think, you know, that comes a little bit round to what I was saying with when I lost my confidence. You know, I was still putting on aids to do a piaffe, but my brain was not in the right place to do it. And I think that is, you know, you have to really think about, you can only give those signals that you're talking about there and read the horse if your brain is in the right place to do so. So, you know, if you're in a pickle about something, you've had a stressful day at work, you've had an argument with your partner, you know, your head's up your backside a little bit, then go for a hack. Or go do something different, but don't try and go and do something that's going to challenge you in a negative way and not help you communicate with your horse in the best way.
Yeah, and every single way. And I have to just say, he's the reason why I think like that. You know, Warwick I'm not even sure he knows.
Did I get it second hand? Should I have had it direct from you?
Like, you should have had it direct from Warwick. Like, your journey you've been on and the way that you've opened the door for so many of us now to want to connect with horses on a mental level. I'll dare to even say on a spiritual level, to actually have real connection, not an obedient animal. And I just wanted to make sure that anybody who's here tonight knows that that's not something I've come across myself. That is from listening to and watching Warwick.
Thank you.
Can I back up before the break? I'm not brave, I'm thorough. Thorough was the word that I was trying to... I've told that story a million times and I just blanked. But yeah, I'm not brave, I'm thorough. At what point
did that word come back to you?
The one thing that I would like to say as well, just to add on when you're talking about the piaffe, is that whole idea of like being present is the point. And if you were in the process of asking for a piaffe, but your brain was thinking about the failure of the piaffe in the future, then brain and body are in different positions, and that's the thing. And it's about trying to not have your brain be in the future or the past, not thinking, when I tried this with the horse last time, it tried to deck me, or he was a bit spicy when I got him out the stable this morning, that means XYZ's going to happen later. And that's the same, when are we scared of our horses on the floor, generally, even on their backs, is when their brain and body are in different positions. When a horse is running around and screaming and looking at its mates in the field, that's when you get knocked over. And so, that is such an important thing to work towards.